Scary Deep Woods Stories, The Whispering Woods of Blackwater, West Virginia. If you're enjoying these chilling tales from the darkest corners of America, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you never miss a scream in the night. Every week, a new story awaits. And trust me, you won't want to face it alone. The fog rolled thick and slow over the cracked asphalt of Route 32, curling around the tires of the black SUV like ghostly tendrils. Inside, five friends from New York, Jesse, Tyler, Amanda, Chris, and Mia, laughed nervously, their voices bouncing off the worn leather seats and rattling windows. Jesse, the self-proclaimed director of their small documentary team, glanced at the GPS and pointed toward a narrow dirt road. There, Blackwater Falls State Park entrance. That's it. Turn here, Ty. Tyler, her boyfriend and the group's cameraman, turned the wheel with one hand, the other gripping a half-finished Red Bull. The SUV bumped onto the gravel path, disappearing under a tunnel of towering pine trees that arched above them like silent watchers. Amanda, a paranormal researcher and part-time skeptic, leaned forward. So remind me again why we're filming in the middle of nowhere. Jesse grinned. Because 53 people have gone missing in these woods since 1972. Locals say the forest doesn't want them to leave. That's gold, Amanda. Creepy gold. Chris chuckled from the back. And because we need views, don't forget that. Mia, the quiet one, stared out the window, watching the trees blur past, her fingers drumming a silent rhythm on her knee. She didn't like this place. She hadn't since they crossed into West Virginia. The air felt heavy, charged like static before a thunderstorm. She hadn't said anything, though. They'd all think she was being dramatic again. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the ranger station. It was abandoned. Not closed for the evening, but abandoned. Windows dark, the front door hanging slightly ajar. A rusted sign swung in the breeze. Blackwater Falls State Park. Established 1937. Tyler hopped out first, camera already rolling. This is perfect. Look at the atmosphere. Jesse followed, gesturing dramatically. Start with a slow pan. Get the wind in the mic. That creaking sign. Yeah, that's our cold open. Amanda frowned, stepping onto the wooden porch, her boots thudding softly. This place is a safety violation waiting to happen. Where the hell is the ranger? Chris tugged on the door. It groaned open, revealing a dark interior that smelled of mildew and something else. Metallic, like old blood. Mia hung back, her eyes fixed on a faded poster nailed beside the door. It was a missing persons notice. Dozens of them. Yellowed photos stapled one over another. Names, ages, last seen dates. Some dated back to the 70s. Others were newer. Too new. Jesse peeked inside. Nobody's here. Weird. But we'll be camping anyway, so who cares? They piled back into the SUV and drove deeper into the forest. No cell signal. The GPS froze. Birds had stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to have died. Finally, they found a clearing and set up their tents. Tyler filmed everything, laughing, joking, beer bottles clinking. As the sun dipped low, shadows lengthened unnaturally fast. Chris lit a fire while Amanda arranged her EMF detector and thermal camera. We'll do a sweep after dark, she said. See if anything pings. Just don't fake anything for views. I mean it, Jesse. Jesse held up both hands. Scout's honor. But her eyes gleamed with ambition. They ate canned chili, drank cheap beer, and when the stars blinked into the night sky, Tyler and Amanda began filming. The forest was silent, not quiet, silent. No crickets, no rustling, just stillness. Amanda's EMF meter began to spike near a tree with strange markings, deep gouges in the bark, almost like symbols. Mia stood behind them staring at the marks. Her breath caught. One symbol looked like a spiral, identical to the one she'd seen in a dream 3 nights ago. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. Her mouth wouldn't open. Her voice was gone. At midnight, Chris wandered off to pee. He didn't come back. At first, they thought he was playing a prank. Jesse called for him, then Tyler, then Amanda, her flashlight sweeping side to side. No answer. They split up reluctantly. Jesse and Tyler went one direction, Amanda and Mia another. 10 minutes in, Amanda's thermal camera glitched. The screen went white, then red, then black. A figure appeared for a moment. Too tall, limbs too long, standing still behind a tree. Then gone. Amanda froze. "Did you see?" But Mia was gone. The flashlight beam swung wildly. No sign. Just that unnatural silence. Amanda ran. She didn't make it far before she hit something. A wall of cold, invisible air that knocked the wind out of her. She dropped the camera. When she opened her eyes, the forest had changed. The trees were wrong. Closer, thicker, gnarled like bones. And someone was whispering her name. Jesse and Tyler returned to camp to find the fire out and all the gear scattered. No sign of Amanda, Mia, or Chris. Tyler rewound the last few minutes of his recording. He paused, zoomed. In one frame, just behind Mia, stood a figure cloaked in shadow. No eyes, no face, just teeth. Jesse stared at the screen. "We need to go. Now." But the path was gone. The road they drove in on was no longer there. Just trees. Endless, whispering trees. And in the distance, someone screamed. Then the forest went silent again. Jesse clutched Tyler's arm as the scream echoed through the woods and then faded into that same suffocating silence, the kind that pressed against your eardrums like you were underwater. They stood still in the dark, breath held, listening for another sound. Footsteps, a voice, anything. But there was nothing. Tyler's grip on the camera tightened, the blinking red light still recording as he slowly turned in a circle, scanning the tree line. "It came from that direction," Jesse whispered, pointing toward a thicket to the east. But the compass app on her phone spun wildly, offering no direction. The GPS had long since stopped functioning. Tyler nodded grimly. "We'll go together. Slow. Don't shout." They moved in silence, every step crunching dead leaves and brittle twigs. Shadows twisted and recoiled with each sweep of Tyler's flashlight. The trees grew denser here, older, their bark warped and peeling, like stretched skin. Then the ground beneath them changed, softer, damp. Marshland. The air smelled like rot. Jesse stopped. "This isn't part of the map. There's no bog near the campsite." Tyler looked around. "There's nothing on the map anymore." They moved forward, the muck sucking at their boots. Then the camera caught movement, barely perceptible, a flicker of white to the left. Tyler zoomed instinctively. A pale figure, far ahead, unmoving. "Mia!" he called hoarsely. The figure didn't respond. Jessie stepped forward, raising her flashlight. The beam hit the figure directly. It was Mia, but not right. She was barefoot, mud-covered, her eyes unfocused and wide, and she was whispering something repeatedly, her lips barely moving. Jessie ran toward her. "Mia, are you okay? Where's Amanda? What happened?" But Mia didn't acknowledge her, didn't blink. Her voice droned on, unintelligible. Tyler got closer, aiming the mic. Mia's whisper became clear. "He walks where the light won't go. He walks where the light won't go." Jessie shook her. "Mia, snap out of it." Mia gasped, eyes locking on hers suddenly. "You're not supposed to be here. He knows you now." Then her body stiffened, her mouth opened wider than humanly possible, and a sound poured out, high-pitched, warbling, like a scream dragged through a tunnel. Tyler recoiled, stumbling back into the swamp. Jessie screamed, grabbing Mia's shoulders, trying to wake her, but Mia collapsed, unconscious. The scream stopped. The woods fell silent again. They dragged her back to the camp, her body limp but breathing. She didn't wake. Amanda and Chris were still missing. Jessie wrapped Mia in blankets, trying to keep her warm, while Tyler checked the camera footage. The image distorted again, glitching as before, then freezing on a frame. Amanda, running, face twisted in terror, something just behind her. A shape, not human, not animal, just tall and shifting. It had no form, but its presence was unmistakable. And behind it, trees that weren't part of Blackwater. Not anymore. Jessie sat down hard. "We need help." Tyler looked around. "From where? We have no signal, and we don't even know where we are anymore." The forest around them had changed. The trees were unfamiliar. The landmarks were gone. Even the stars above seemed wrong, shifted, like they were no longer in the same place on the planet. At dawn, Mia woke up. She didn't speak at first, just stared into the dying embers of the fire. Jesse knelt beside her. Mia, what happened out there? Mia's voice was hoarse. I followed Amanda. We saw someone, or something. It lured her deeper. The trees closed behind us. We couldn't find the way back. Then, I think she was taken. Jesse swallowed hard. Taken by what? Mia shook her head. I don't know. It doesn't walk. It doesn't breathe. But it knows your name. It showed me things. Things I don't understand. Tyler asked, Did you see where it took her? Mia looked up. There's a place, a clearing with stones. Big ones, standing in a circle. We found it by accident. Amanda stepped inside. The wind stopped. The birds vanished, and she screamed like she was burning. Jesse stood up. We have to go there. Now, before it's too late. Tyler hesitated. We don't know what we're walking into. Jesse looked at him, eyes burning. I'm not leaving her, and I'm not letting this thing win. They packed quickly. Mia led the way, moving like she was half-conscious, guided more by memory than logic. They passed the gouged tree again, the spiral symbol carved deeper now, almost pulsing. The EMF meter Amanda had left behind buzzed softly on the ground as they stepped past it. After 2 hours of hiking, they found the clearing. Stones rose in a perfect circle, each taller than a man, carved with the same symbols as the trees. The air inside the circle was cold and unnaturally still. Jesse stepped forward. Tyler raised the camera. Mia grabbed her wrist. Don't go in. That's how it sees you. Jesse paused, heart pounding. Then from the trees behind them, a sound. Not a branch breaking, not an animal. A dragging, wet sound. Tyler spun the camera. A figure emerged. It wore Amanda's jacket, but it wasn't Amanda. Its arms were too long, its head tilted too far, and it was smiling. Jessie froze, her breath catching in her throat as the thing wearing Amanda's jacket took a step closer, its elongated limbs swaying unnaturally. Tyler held the camera steady despite the shaking in his hands, capturing every twitch, every grotesque movement. The thing grinned wider, its mouth stretching far beyond human limits, revealing rows of small, needle-like teeth. Mia whimpered behind them, pressing her hands over her ears as if trying to block out something they couldn't hear. Jessie hissed, "Run!" and grabbed Mia by the arm, dragging her away from the stone circle. Tyler stumbled after them, never taking his eyes off the creature until it let out a low, guttural moan that seemed to vibrate through the trees themselves. They sprinted back the way they came, but the woods were no longer familiar. The trees had moved. Paths they had followed hours before now led to dense thickets or twisted back on themselves. The forest groaned around them, and the temperature dropped sharply. Jessie stopped, gasping for breath, spinning in circles. "We're not going in circles. The forest is changing around us." Tyler looked down at his compass app. Again, the needle spun aimlessly. Mia slumped to her knees, whispering something under her breath again, too low for them to catch. Tyler knelt beside her. "What are you saying? Mia, look at me." Her eyes met his, and they were wrong. Too dark, as if something else was peering through them. "He knows we're afraid. That's what feeds him. You feel it, don't you? The pressure, the dread. It's not the forest. It's him. He's making it this way." Jessie shook her head. "We have to keep moving. Find high ground. Maybe we'll see the way back." They walked uphill, breaking branches to mark their path. But the branches they broke were gone the next time they turned around. Tyler filmed everything, even as the battery level dropped unnaturally fast. The camera dimmed, flickered, then lit up again, showing something behind them for a single frame, a tall shape, watching. They reached a rocky outcrop that gave a limited view of the surrounding woods. But instead of seeing the camp, or the road, or even the bog, all they saw was trees. Endless, dark, ancient trees stretching in all directions. Jessie collapsed onto the rock. "We're trapped." A low hum filled the air, almost mechanical, but mixed with whispering. Tyler turned in circles, trying to locate the source. Then Mia stood abruptly and walked toward a cluster of trees. Jessie shouted after her, but Mia didn't respond. She reached a specific tree, a wide, hollow one, with strange markings carved into the bark. Mia placed her hand on it, and the tree responded. It opened. The bark folded back like petals, revealing a tunnel made of wooden roots descending underground. Jessie screamed, "Don't!" But Mia was already inside. Tyler ran after her. Jessie hesitated, then followed. Inside, it was warm and pulsing, like being inside something alive. The tunnel twisted, descending deeper. The flashlight flickered, but Tyler's camera held a steady glow. Carvings lined the walls, figures bowing before a tall shadow, a circle of stones, symbols of eyes crossed out. They emerged into a chamber deep beneath the forest. At the center stood a stone altar, covered in moss and dried blood. Around the edges, more of those standing stones, smaller now, but each vibrating faintly with a low hum. Mia stood at the center, eyes wide. This is where it started. This is where they brought him through. Jessie stepped forward, heart thudding. Brought who? Mia turned slowly, tears streaming down her face. He was summoned here, a long time ago, by people who wanted power. They offered blood, sacrifices. He came, but they couldn't control him, so they sealed him here. But now, someone has opened the door again. Tyler scanned the carvings. You mean the thing we saw? It's not just a ghost. It's something ancient, something real. Mia nodded. And every time someone steps into the circle, he sees them. He follows. He feeds. A roar echoed through the tunnels and the walls shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jessie shouted, "We need to get out, now!" They turned to run, but the tunnel behind them had vanished. Solid wall. The chamber grew colder. The air thickened. Tyler aimed the camera at the altar, and the screen showed Amanda. Not now, but earlier. Screaming, being dragged, her nails clawing at the stone. Then static. Jessie covered her mouth. She's still alive. He hasn't killed her yet. Mia knelt at the altar. There's a way to send him back, but we need to finish the sealing ritual. The symbols, they have to be drawn in blood. Human blood. Jessie looked down at her hands. Then use mine. Do it. Tyler hesitated, pulling a knife from his backpack, one he carried for protection. Jessie held out her palm. Hurry! He sliced, shallow but enough. Blood welled up. Mia dipped her fingers and began tracing symbols on each of the stones around the chamber. The roar grew louder, now accompanied by whispers, dozens of them circling the room. Tyler pointed the camera toward the altar. A shape was forming there, a shadow rising from the stone. Long limbs, a crooked head, eyes that weren't eyes at all. Mia finished the last symbol. The chamber shook violently. The shadow screamed, a deafening metallic wail that pierced bone. Then light erupted from the stones, and the shadow was pulled inward, thrashing, clawing, trying to escape. The air imploded, and everything went black. When they woke, they were outside, on the edge of the original campsite. Dawn was breaking. The forest looked normal. Birds chirped. The compass pointed north, but Amanda was still missing, and the spiral symbol was now burned into Jessie's palm. Permanent. Mia whispered, He's not gone. Just asleep. For now. The sun had barely crested the horizon when they stumbled out of the trees, blinking against the cold morning light as if surfacing from a nightmare that hadn't yet let go. Jessie's hand throbbed. The spiral burned into her skin, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Tyler sat silently, camera resting on his lap, eyes unfocused, while Mia stared at the tree line with a hollow expression. Amanda was still gone. The forest was calm now, no unnatural whispers, no moving trees or flickering shadows. But that peace felt artificial, like the calm before something worse. They had sealed the entity. At least that's what Mia believed. But even she admitted it was temporary. The symbols she drew weren't from any language she knew. They had come to her like memories not her own. Jessie flexed her hand again. He's still in there, she whispered. Tyler finally spoke. I think he marked you. You're connected to him now. No one responded. The air felt heavy. They made their way back to the car, parked 2 miles down the trailhead, where they had entered Blackwater woods. It looked untouched, as if none of it had happened, as if Amanda had never screamed or vanished or been dragged into a tree that breathed. They drove in silence to the nearest town, Tannersville, a sleepy Pennsylvania village with colonial architecture and winding roads that seemed untouched by time. Jesse checked them into a roadside motel while Mia sat in the lobby staring at a painting of the forest that hung crookedly on the wall. The woman behind the counter, older and suspiciously cheerful, leaned over to Jesse. "Y'all hikers? Lots of folks come through here looking for Blackwater. Beautiful, but dangerous. Some don't come back." Jesse froze. "You've heard of people disappearing?" The woman lowered her voice. "Folklore mostly. The woods go back centuries. Lenape land. Locals talk about the Shadow Man. Say he's been seen since the 1700s. Tall, thin, always watching. Some say he follows bloodlines. Others say he guards something buried deep. Best not to poke around." Jessie forced a smile and took the room key. Inside the room, she immediately pulled out the sketch pad from her bag and began redrawing the altar symbols from memory. "We need to understand what this is. If Amanda's still alive, he's keeping her for a reason. That means there's still time." Tyler, rewatching the camera footage, flinched. "There's something new in the video. Something we didn't see before." He played a slowed frame. In the background behind the altar, a flash of a second figure. Less defined than the shadow creature, but humanoid. Watching. "There's something else down there. Maybe more than one," Mia muttered. "We never sealed the door. We just forced it closed." That night, Jesse dreamed of trees whispering her name, of Amanda crawling through tunnels deeper than the earth, screaming but muted, as if caught between two dimensions. She awoke gasping, blood dripping from her palm where the scar had cracked open. The spiral glowed faintly in the dark. The television switched on by itself, static. Then the voice, not Amanda's, but something wearing her voice. "Come back." The room went cold. Jesse screamed. Tyler bolted up, camera in hand, and the TV went black. Mia was already sitting up, eyes wide. "He's calling to you, through her." The next morning, Jesse insisted they find answers. They visited the local library, digging through microfilm and dusty local archives. There were stories going back over 200 years, people vanishing in Blackwater, sightings of a tall figure in the woods, strange symbols carved into trees. One article stood out, dated 1956. A church group of 7 teens vanished on a camping trip. Only one girl was found, curled in a hollow tree, eyes wide open, mouth full of dirt, hands clawing at her own throat. She had drawn the same spiral symbol in blood across her chest. The survivor, Evelyn Park, was committed to a state hospital and never spoke again. Tyler looked up the hospital, abandoned now since 1998, the Black Hollow Sanitarium. "We need to find her records. Maybe she saw the same thing we did." That night, they broke into the old sanitarium. The place was a corpse. Peeling paint, collapsed ceilings, wheelchairs rusting in corners. But the files were still there, locked behind a rusted cabinet in the basement. Tyler forced it open. Evelyn's chart was incomplete, pages missing, but one note remained, dated 1960. Patient repeats phrase in Lenape language. Rough translation, "He who speaks without a mouth." The note ended with a warning. "Do not show her the spiral symbol. Causes violent seizures." Mia stepped back. "That's what we're dealing with. A being older than language, older than the forest. It doesn't kill the way we think. It inhabits, infects." Jessie felt her palm burn again. Then something slammed upstairs, hard. They froze. Another bang, then the unmistakable sound of feet dragging across the tiles. Tyler turned off the flashlight. The darkness became absolute. From down the hall, a voice echoed. Amanda's voice. "Jessie!" They turned. Nothing there. Then the voice again, closer. "Please, help me," Mia whispered. "Don't answer. That's not her." The dragging sound grew louder. Closer. Then from the shadows a pale figure emerged. Amanda, but wrong. Her eyes were black voids, her mouth frozen in a twisted smile. Her limbs bent the wrong way, jerking like a marionette. She reached out. "You left me." Jessie screamed and bolted up the stairs. Tyler and Mia followed. They crashed through the rotting doors and into the parking lot, hearts pounding. Amanda, or the thing pretending to be her, stood in the hospital window watching, then vanished. In the car, Tyler reviewed the footage. The screen glitched and warped, but one frame showed Amanda's face, only not in the hospital, underground, behind stone walls. She's still there. Not dead. Not yet. Jesse turned to Mia. We're going back. Mia didn't protest. Then we do it properly this time. With salt, with iron, and with blood. They returned to Blackwater under a blood-orange sky, the clouds bruised and heavy as if the land itself resented their arrival, the trees swaying in a wind that never touched their skin. And Jessie felt the mark on her palm pulse with heat, as if the forest had been waiting. Tyler carried a shotgun loaded with iron slugs. Mia held a backpack stuffed with salt, chalk, candles, anointing oil, and Jessie's notebook, now full of spirals and untranslatable sigils drawn in a half-trance in the motel room over the last 3 nights. The trail had changed. The same path now twisted left where it once curved right. Fallen branches formed patterns too perfect to be random, and crows circled above without sound, just watching. Every step deeper into the woods felt like being pulled under the surface of a black lake, oxygen thinning, senses distorting. This place isn't static, Mia whispered, eyes darting. It moves with him. We're walking into a trap that's still building itself. Jessie pressed forward, following the pull in her palm. The deeper they went, the stronger the burning became, until the trees themselves began to bleed sap the color of ink, dripping down bark that pulsed faintly like skin. The silence was absolute. No birds, no insects, just the distant hiss of leaves whispering in a language older than memory. When they reached the altar clearing, it was different. The stone slab had cracked, and the runes Mia had scrawled in haste last time were now charred, erased as if the entity had spat them out. The ground stank of rot and iron. Jessie's head ached, visions flashing behind her eyes. Amanda bound in roots, her eyes begging, her mouth stitched shut with tendrils of bark. Mia poured salt in a wide circle, then another inside it, forming a barrier. She lit black candles at 4 cardinal points, chanting softly in an unknown tongue she claimed had come to her in dreams. Tyler checked the camera. Battery just drained. It was full a second ago. Jessie took a deep breath and stepped inside the ring. He's connected to me. If I go in, maybe I can find her. Mia warned, if you break the circle, he can follow you out. Jessie knelt, placed her marked palm on the stone, and closed her eyes. The cold was instant, brutal like plunging into glacial water. Her ears rang. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the woods. She was underground. Stone walls stretched endlessly, flickering with fireless shadows. Roots hung from the ceiling, dripping with dark fluid. The air buzzed with voices, thousands of whispers layered atop one another, calling her name. Jessie walked forward, barefoot now, the path lined with bones, some human, others indescribable. She saw flashes in the walls, faces of those lost to the forest, mouths open in silent screams, eyes pleading. Amanda's voice called again, close now. Jessie turned and there she was, chained to a wall by living vines, her eyes wide, lips trembling. He's inside me, Amanda gasped. He watches through me. Jessie reached out, fingers brushing Amanda's face, then screamed as pain shot through her arm. The vines tightened around Amanda, and a deep voice echoed through the chamber. She is mine. You open the door. You carry my mark. Jessie stumbled back, and the shadows thickened, forming a shape. A man impossibly tall, his face obscured by a mass of writhing roots, limbs too long, fingers splitting at the ends like branches. You called me here, he rumbled. Now I am awake. Jessie shouted, Let her go! Take me instead. The figure paused. You offer willingly. Before she could answer, Amanda's body began to convulse, her mouth tearing open as the vines unraveled from within her throat, revealing a second voice, deeper, older, layered with thousands of others. No! Mia's voice cut through the air. We're not letting him take anyone. Jessie blinked, and she was back in the forest. Mia had dragged her out of the circle, chanting, bleeding from her nose, her hands shaking. He almost had you. Tyler was unconscious, lying by the tree line, a long, bleeding gash across his chest. The candles were all out. The salt circle was broken. He tried to come through you, Mia whispered. He's not just in the woods. He's inside you now. Jessie coughed, vomiting black water. Her veins glowed faintly with the same light as the spirals. I saw her. She's alive, but he's using her to speak. He wants me to replace her. He's forcing you to carry his will, Mia said, backing away slowly. That mark is no longer a connection. It's a doorway. The trees groaned around them. The forest was no longer just watching, it was hunting. Shapes moved between trunks, humanoid but wrong, twitching, distorted, pale. We need to leave, Jessie said, now. But the path was gone. Every direction looked identical, looping back on itself. They ran blindly, Mia dragging Tyler, Jessie navigating by the throbbing pain in her hand. The forest stretched, lengthened, turned in on itself, as if it refused to let them go. Then a cabin, hidden among thick roots, moss-covered and ancient, older than any map, smoke curling from a stone chimney. That wasn't there before, Mia breathed. It wants us to go in, Jessie said. That means we should run. But the forest didn't give them the choice. The path behind them was swallowed by vines. The ground trembled. Something was coming. The door creaked open by itself. Inside, a single room, stone floors, symbols carved into every inch of wood, bones hanging from the rafters. A journal sat on the table, open, its pages filled with the same spirals. Tyler stirred. I've seen this cabin before, in my dreams. He stood, dazed, walked to the table. This belonged to the first one, the one who survived centuries ago. Jessie flipped through the journal. It told of a settler in the 1700s who had stumbled into the woods and found the being, called Namaska, the mouthless one, who offered visions in exchange for worship. The settler built the altar. The sacrifice began. He was the first priest, Jessie whispered, and the forest has kept the line going. Mia traced a bloodline chart scratched into the floor. Each chosen person is marked, a vessel. They die, or become part of him. Suddenly the candles lit themselves. The door slammed shut. A voice from behind the wall. Amanda's again. Help me, please. Jessie pressed her marked hand to the journal, and the room shifted. The air collapsed in on itself. They were falling into darkness, into part of the forest that wasn't physical, the true Blackwater. Deeper than earth, deeper than death. Jessie's body tumbled through a void where time collapsed like a shattered mirror. Her limbs ached as she landed hard on the cold, damp earth. But this earth was unlike any she had known. The soil was blacker than the deepest night, slick and wet, almost alive beneath her fingers. Roots twisted and writhed around her like serpents, some pulsing softly as if breathing. A heavy fog coiled through the gnarled trees, whispering unintelligible secrets in voices that scraped her soul raw. She struggled to rise, but felt the sharp sting of thorn vines wrapping around her ankles and wrists. The thorns bit deep, searing pain radiating up her limbs. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, like 1,000 voices clawing their way into her mind. You came back, the voice hissed, cold and unyielding, but you belong to us now. Shapes emerged from the murky shadows, figures half human, half wood, their skin rough bark and cracked earth. Their eyes were hollow pits of darkness, mouths sealed with twisted roots. Jessie recognized them instantly. The lost ones, souls trapped in Blackwater's sinister grasp, bound by the mouthless one's curse. They shuffled closer, dragging rusted chains and ancient broken tools stained with centuries of blood and sorrow. The air around her grew thick with despair, the weight of countless lost lives pressing down like a stone. They take your breath, your memories, your very essence, one figure murmured, voice like the rustling of dead leaves, until nothing remains but a hollow shell to serve the forest's hunger. Desperation flared within Jessie. She clenched her hand, feeling the burning mark pulse, a scorching heat that flared like wildfire beneath her skin. It was her only weapon, her only hope. Concentrating, she focused the heat on the vines binding her. willing them to burn and release her. The thorns hissed and blackened, but refused to break. Panic surged, threatening to overwhelm her, until a sudden crack split the earth beneath her feet. From the fissure emerged Amanda, her face twisted in agony, half covered in bark, eyes glowing with unnatural light. "You carry his mark," Amanda whispered, voice warped and echoing. "But still you resist. Why?" Jesse's mind swirled with confusion and fear, the memories of Amanda's warning merging with the painful reality around her. "This place changes you," Amanda continued, reaching out with splintered fingers. "The mouthless one's hunger is eternal. He feeds through you, and soon you will belong to the forest forever." With a burst of strength, Jesse shattered the vines with a blistering flare of heat. The lost ones recoiled, their hollow eyes filled with rage and sorrow. Amanda's face twisted in despair and fury. "You cannot run from what you are becoming." Jessie stumbled to her feet, breath ragged, the black soil writhing around her like living fingers, eager to drag her back into darkness. The whispers became a storm of voices, recounting the stories of those lost before her, betrayed, consumed, trapped in eternal torment. She followed a flicker of pale light, a fragile beacon cutting through the gloom. It led her deeper into the forest's heart, to a clearing dominated by a colossal, ancient tree, its twisted branches clawing at the sky like desperate hands. The tree's bark seemed to pulse with a life of its own, whispers spilling from its hollow trunk in a language older than time itself. It promised power, freedom, but at a terrible cost. Jesse knew then that the mark was a key, not just a curse, but a link to the mouthless one's prison. To end the nightmare, she would have to confront the source of the forest's hunger directly. From the shadows, Mia and Tyler appeared, both battered but alive. Tyler held a jagged knife etched with ancient symbols, the key to severing the forest's hold. Together, they prepared for a final, desperate ritual beneath the ancient tree, where the boundaries between life and death blurred, and the fate of Blackwater would be decided. The forest groaned, and the mouthless one's voice echoed through the branches, promising vengeance and eternal hunger. Jessie tightened her grip on the glowing mark, ready to face the darkness, knowing that failure would mean the forest would consume not just her, but all who dared to enter. The immense ancient tree towered above Jessie, Mia, and Tyler, its twisted branches like skeletal fingers clawing at the murky sky, blotting out the faint light of the moon. The ground beneath them was soft and damp, smelling of decay and forgotten memories. Every breath felt heavy, as if the very air conspired to suffocate them. Jessie's hand throbbed with the burning mark, an unbearable heat that pulsed like a living heart beneath her skin. The forest seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Tyler unrolled the brittle parchment carefully, his fingers trembling. The faded symbols writhed faintly, as if alive, glowing faintly in the shadowed clearing. "This ritual is our only hope," he whispered. "It will sever the link between the mouthless one and this cursed forest. But it demands a sacrifice. One who bears the mark must give their blood willingly, offering themselves to the ancient powers that bind this place." Mia's eyes never left Jesse's face, searching for a sign of willingness. Jesse's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might drown out the sinister whispers swirling around them. "I don't want to die," Jesse admitted, voice raw. "But if I don't do this, the mouthless one will continue to feed on the souls trapped here. People will keep disappearing." The forest seemed to pulse in response, the shadows deepening as the lost ones stirred, their hollow eyes flickering with hope and desperation. Their silent mouths gaped open and closed, begging for release. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it 1,000 tortured whispers and the unmistakable scent of rot. The branches above creaked and groaned, as if the tree itself was awakening. The very soil beneath their feet vibrated, sending tremors through their bodies. From the darkness emerged a towering figure, more horrific than anything Jesse had imagined. The mouthless one. His skin was bark-like, rough and cracked, with tangled roots spreading across his limbs like living armor. His mouth was a gaping void, dripping with black sap that hissed when it touched the ground. His voice was not heard, but felt, a wave of terror that crushed their minds and threatened to pull them into eternal darkness. The lost ones writhed and screamed silently, their anguish amplified in Jessie's mind. She felt the malevolent hunger radiate from the mouthless one, a black hole trying to consume her very essence. Tyler gripped the iron knife tightly, the only weapon that could end this nightmare. He began to chant, the ancient words twisting in his throat, a language long forgotten but powerful enough to bind spirits and sever curses. As he chanted, a soft golden light emanated from the blade, pushing back the shadows and causing the mouthless one to recoil momentarily. Jessie stepped forward, her burning mark now flaring fiercely, almost blinding. She pressed the blade against her palm, the cold metal biting deep, drawing blood that dripped onto the cursed earth. The pain was immense but purifying, as if her life force was being poured into the soil to cleanse it. The forest exploded into chaos. Roots erupted from the ground, twisting and lashing like serpents, trying to ensnare her. The lost ones surged forward, desperate to stop the ritual. Mia and Tyler fought to hold them back, but the sheer number was overwhelming. The whispers rose to a deafening roar, voices of centuries trapped in torment. Jessie's vision blurred. She was losing herself to the darkness, but deep inside something fierce ignited, a will to survive, to free the soul shackled to this cursed land. With a scream that shattered the night, she plunged the knife deep into the ancient tree's bark, where the ritual's power was strongest. Light burst forth in a searing explosion, illuminating the entire forest with a blinding radiance. The mouthless one screamed without sound, his form dissolving into a black mist that was sucked into the earth like a dying storm. The lost ones' hollow eyes filled with tears as their tortured forms crumbled to dust, finally free. But the victory was bittersweet. Jessie collapsed to her knees, exhausted and broken. The mark on her hand faded to a faint glow, a reminder of the price she paid. Mia and Tyler rushed to her side, their faces etched with relief and sorrow. As the light dimmed and silence returned, the ancient tree creaked ominously. From its shadows a whisper slipped through the night air, low, cold, and unmistakable. "This is not the end." Jessie's heart clenched. Somewhere deep beneath Blackwater, a new darkness was awakening, waiting for the next soul brave or foolish enough to challenge it. The dawn broke over Blackwater, painting the sky with pale hues of pink and orange, but the light did little to ease the weight pressing down on Jessie, Mia, and Tyler as they emerged from the haunted forest. The air was still thick with the residue of the ritual, a heavy silence hanging over the town like a shroud. The locals moved about their daily lives, oblivious to the darkness that had nearly consumed them. Yet Jessie could feel it lurking beneath the surface, a simmering threat waiting to rise again. As they walked the cracked sidewalks of Blackwater, they noticed subtle changes. The once vibrant leaves on the trees now appeared dull and brittle. Shadows seemed to twitch unnaturally in their peripheral vision, and an eerie chill clung to the air, despite the warming sun. Jessie's palm tingled with the fading mark, a constant reminder that the fight was far from over. Their investigation led them to the town's historical society, where dusty archives held secrets about Blackwater's past. Tyler spread out old newspaper clippings and faded photographs, revealing a pattern of disappearances dating back over a century, all clustered near the forest. Among the documents, they found mentions of a cult that worshipped the Mouthless One, believing it to be a guardian of the forest's power, demanding sacrifices to maintain its dark grip. As the trio delved deeper, an unsettling realization dawned on them. The Mouthless One was only one aspect of a far greater evil rooted in the town's history. Late that night, Jessie awoke to a soft tapping at her window. The glow from her hand had almost vanished, but now it pulsed faintly, illuminating an outline outside, a figure cloaked in shadows, barely visible, but unmistakably watching. Heart pounding, she flung the curtains open, but the figure melted into the night. The following days brought more disturbances. Pets vanished without trace. Whispers echoed through empty streets, and more townsfolk reported nightmares filled with faceless entities reaching out from darkness. Desperate for answers, Jessie, Mia, and Tyler returned to the forest edge, drawn by a force they could not resist. There, at the base of a withered oak, they uncovered a hidden entrance to an underground cavern system. a network of tunnels that twisted beneath Blackwater, like veins feeding the town's ancient curse. Armed with flashlights and determination, they descended into the suffocating darkness. The walls were slick with moisture, and distant echoes carried faint cries and the unsettling scrape of unseen things moving. Deeper inside, the tunnels opened into a vast chamber dominated by a massive stone altar, stained dark with old blood and surrounded by carvings depicting rituals far older than anything they had encountered. As they explored, the air grew colder, and a whispering chant began to rise, low and hypnotic. Shadows gathered, coalescing into forms more tangible than before. From the darkness stepped a figure unlike the mouthless one. This was the cult leader, a gaunt man whose eyes glowed with unnatural light, a sinister smile curling his lips. He spoke of a pact forged long ago, a bargain sealed in blood that bound Blackwater to the forest darkness. The cult was not just worshippers, but guardians of a gateway between worlds, a portal that must remain open to maintain the balance of power. Jessie felt the weight of his words crushing her spirit. The mark on her hand flared violently as he advanced, promising that she too was destined to join the ranks of the chosen, to become an eternal sentinel of the dark realm. Mia and Tyler stepped forward, but the cult leader raised his hand and an invisible force hurled them back against the cold stone walls. Jessie's scream echoed through the chamber as she struggled against the overwhelming pull, fighting to retain her humanity. Just as the darkness threatened to consume her completely, a sudden burst of golden light erupted from the iron knife in Tyler's hand, shattering the shadows and throwing the cult leader into retreat. Seizing the moment, Jessie plunged the blade into the altar, breaking the ancient seal. The cavern trembled, and a deafening roar filled the space as the gateway began to collapse. They fled the tunnels as the earth shook violently beneath their feet, barely escaping the cave-in that sealed the darkness away. At least for now. Outside, the forest was silent. The oppressive weight lifted, but the cost clear in their weary faces. Jessie knew the battle had only just begun. Somewhere beyond the veil, the darkness waited, patient and hungry, ready to rise again. The days after their harrowing escape from the underground cavern felt like a fragile ceasefire in an ongoing war, as Jessie, Mia, and Tyler struggled to piece together the fragments of the dark mystery that had engulfed Blackwater. Though the gateway to the Shadow Realm had been sealed, at least temporarily, the town still pulsed with an unnatural energy that gnawed at their nerves. The townsfolk went about their routines with a brittle normalcy, but the trio knew better. The evil that had rooted itself in the town's soil was patient and cunning. Jessie's mark, once a furious blaze on her palm, now flickered faintly like a dying ember. Yet it still throbbed with a steady pulse that reminded her every waking moment that the darkness was far from defeated. Tyler, obsessed with finding a permanent solution, spent hours poring over the ancient texts salvaged from the altar's remains, his eyes scanning cryptic symbols and forgotten languages. Among the faded pages, he uncovered references to a powerful artifact known as the Heart of Lumina, said to be a relic of light capable of sealing any rift between worlds. But its location was lost to the annals of time, hidden deep within Blackwater's own history. Meanwhile, Mia began her own investigation among the townspeople, reaching out to elders, historians, and reluctant witnesses. One particularly chilling encounter was with Eliza, an elderly woman rumored to be a descendant of the original cultists. Her eyes gleamed with unsettling knowledge as she revealed the existence of a cursed bloodline, families whose ancestors had bartered their souls to the Mouthless One, binding their fate to the darkness. According to Eliza, these bloodlines were still active, their members hiding in plain sight, weaving shadows into the fabric of Blackwater's present. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows and thunder rumbled ominously, Jessie was jolted awake by a faint scratching at her door. Opening it cautiously, she found a soaked, pale boy, no older than 10, with hollow eyes that seemed to swallow the light. Whispering in a voice barely above a breath, he warned of figures cloaked in darkness roaming the streets, dragging innocence into the night. His story confirmed their deepest fears. The cult was regaining strength, preparing to perform a final, catastrophic ritual to reopen the gateway and unleash the darkness fully into their world. Armed with grim determination, the trio resolved to infiltrate the abandoned Blackwater Church, a crumbling structure at the town's edge, long rumored to be the cult's meeting place. Inside, the sanctuary was cloaked in decay and despair, stained by years of neglect and dark ceremonies. Candles burned down to nubs scattered across the altar, and twisted symbols scarred the wooden pews and stone walls. The air was thick with a heavy malevolence that pressed down on their chests, each step echoing with distant, agonized whispers. Suddenly, spectral hands burst forth from the walls, clawing at them with desperate, icy fingers. Battling through the onslaught of vengeful spirits, the trio barely escaped their grasp, pushed deeper into the church's shadowed basement. There, hidden behind a false wall, they found a chamber housing a dusty wooden box. Inside lay the heart of Lumina, faintly glowing with an ethereal light. As they reached for it, a chilling voice slithered through the darkness. From the shadows emerged the cult leader once again, his eyes burning with fury and madness, the air around him thickening with dark energy. "You cannot stop what has already been set in motion," he hissed. "The gateway will open, and the darkness will consume all who stand in its way." Tyler grasped the heart of Lumina tightly, feeling a surge of warmth and strength coursing through his veins. Jessie stepped forward, the fading glow of her mark reigniting with renewed intensity. The battle that erupted was fierce and unrelenting, a tempest of light and shadow crashing within the ruined church. Shadows writhed and twisted, lashing out with sinister intent, while the trio fought to hold their ground. The cult leader unleashed curses and dark spells, his voice rising in a maddening chant that threatened to tear the very fabric of reality. Just as all seemed lost, Jessie summoned every ounce of her dwindling power, channeling it through the heart of Lumina. A blinding explosion of golden light engulfed the chamber, shattering the cult leader's form and sending ripples through the darkness. The gateway trembled and then sealed with a final, thunderous roar. Exhausted and battered, Jessie collapsed as the church shook in mourning, the oppressive darkness lifting like a heavy fog. Outside, the storm had passed, and the first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds, casting a fragile hope over Blackwater. Yet in the quiet that followed, Jessie understood the bitter truth. The darkness was not defeated, only delayed. Somewhere in the shadows beyond their sight, it waited, patient and hungry, ready to rise again when the time was right. In the uneasy calm that settled over Blackwater following the harrowing battle at the church, Jessie, Mia, and Tyler found little solace. Though the gateway to the Shadow Realm had been temporarily sealed, the town still bore the scars of darkness that ran deeper than any visible wound. Jessie's mark, once a blazing symbol of defiance, now flickered weakly, a painful reminder that their fight was far from over. Tyler's obsession with uncovering a permanent solution drove him late into the nights, rifling through brittle old books and dusty archives in search of any forgotten knowledge. It was during one such night, beneath the flicker of a dying candle, that Tyler stumbled upon the diary of Reverend Caldwell, the church's last caretaker before it was abandoned. The brittle pages revealed a horrifying truth. The cult had not only opened the gateway, but had bound the spirits of innocent children to their dark magic, using them as anchors to tether the gateway to their world. The revelation struck the trio with a chilling weight. These trapped souls, they realized, were the true source of the darkness's hold on Blackwater. To sever the link forever, they would need to find the ritual site deep within the cavern where these children's spirits had been imprisoned and set them free. As they pored over the diary, the room grew icy cold, shadows stretching unnaturally long. A whispering wind snuffed out their candle, plunging them into darkness, alive with ghostly voices pleading for salvation. Determined, they prepared for a desperate return to the cavern's depths, knowing the risks but driven by the hope of ending the nightmare for good. In the days leading to their departure, Blackwater began to show signs of awakening terror. Lights flickered erratically, spectral shapes darted just beyond sight, and an unnatural chill seeped into the bones of the town's residents. The fragile peace was fracturing. On a storm-tossed night, armed with the heart of Lumina and the diary's cryptic instructions, Jessie, Mia, and Tyler descended once again into the cavern's shadowy abyss. The walls seemed to pulse with dark life, shadows twisting and writhing like living creatures, reaching out as if to snatch them into oblivion. Deep within the cavern, they found an ancient altar surrounded by translucent figures of children, pale, hollow-eyed spirits bound by chains of swirling shadow. Jessie stepped forward, her mark glowing faintly, and began the ritual to release the trapped souls. The cult leader's cruel laughter echoed through the chamber, promising eternal torment should they fail, his voice a venomous thread in the suffocating dark. The cavern trembled violently as dark forces surged, desperate to maintain their grip. But with Mia's steady voice chanting words of light and Tyler focusing the heart of Lumina's radiant power, the shadow chains shattered, one by one, releasing the spirits. Their anguished cries mingled with sighs of relief as they ascended, their radiant glow illuminating the cavern in a brilliant blaze of pure light. The gateway's ominous pulse faltered, darkness dissolving like mist before the dawn. Exhausted yet triumphant, the trio emerged from the cavern as the first golden rays of sunlight bathed Blackwater. The town, forever marked by the horrors it had faced, seemed to breathe anew, cleansed of its ancient curse. Yet as Jessie looked toward the horizon, a cold shiver ran down her spine. Darkness, she knew, was patient and ever watchful. Though this battle was won, the war was far from over. Somewhere hidden in the shadows beyond sight, new threats awaited their time to rise. The fragile peace that had briefly settled over Blackwater after the release of the trapped spirits was nothing more than an illusion, a thin veil over a deepening darkness that clawed relentlessly beneath the town's surface. Jessie, Mia, and Tyler could feel it, an insidious force awakening with a patient and terrible purpose. The townsfolk, though unaware of the full scope of what had transpired, were growing restless and fearful. Strange disappearances became frequent. Neighbors vanished without a trace, doors left ajar, whispered voices in the dead of night, shadows slipping silently through the streets. The unease was palpable, a creeping dread that settled like frost over every home and heart. Jessie's mark pulsed painfully on her wrist, an unrelenting reminder that the evil they had fought was not vanquished, but merely dormant. Desperate for answers, the trio began to scour every inch of Blackwater's history and landscape, piecing together fragments from old records and whispered legends. Their search led them to the decrepit mill on the town's outskirts, long abandoned and rumored to be a place of unspeakable rituals. Underneath its rotting floorboards, they uncovered a hidden chamber coated in dust and darkness. The walls were covered in ancient symbols etched with dried blood. A mural faintly illuminated by their flashlights showed a shadowy figure entwined in thorny branches that seemed to writhe with life. Among the relics lay a journal, tattered and stained, the writings of a cult member who had turned away from the darkness, leaving behind a testament filled with desperate confessions. The pages spoke of a shadow seed, a dark corruption buried deep within Blackwater itself, a twisted force planted by the cult as a failsafe, meant to resurrect the mouthless one and plunge the world into eternal night. The realization hit them like a storm. This seed, this evil core, was awakening, feeding off the fear and suffering of the town. They knew they had no choice but to find it and destroy it before it could grow strong enough to break free. Guided by clues in the journal, the trio ventured into Blackwater Forest, a place steeped in ancient dread. Towering trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows that danced in the moonlight. The forest floor was littered with strange carvings and signs, glowing faintly with an unnatural light, warning trespassers away. Every step felt heavy, the air thick with a malevolent presence that seemed to watch and wait. Deep within the forest's heart, they found it, a grotesque altar, corrupted and pulsating with a sickly black aura, the source of the shadow seed. As Jessie reached out to shatter the dark artifact, the ground trembled violently, and monstrous figures erupted from the shadows. These creatures were unlike anything they had faced before. Twisted forms of corrupted nature, their eyes burning with unholy hunger, limbs like thorn branches twisting and snapping as they advanced. The trio fought with desperation and courage, wielding the heart of Lumina's radiant power in their own unyielding resolve. The battle was fierce and relentless, shadows and light clashing violently in the depths of the ancient woods. Just as their strength began to falter, a blinding wave of pure light burst from the heart of Lumina, shattering the shadow seed and banishing the creatures back into the darkness. Exhausted, wounded, and shaken to their core, Jesse, Mia, and Tyler emerged from the forest as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight piercing the heavy fog. Though the shadow seed was destroyed, they knew this victory was but a fleeting respite. The cult's influence ran deeper than anyone had dared imagine, and the darkness was patient, biding its time, waiting for the moment to rise again. As Blackwater slowly woke from its nightmare, the three friends understood that the fight was far from over. They had won a battle, but the war against the shadows was just beginning. The days following the destruction of the Shadow Seed were filled with a tense, restless energy that clung to Blackwater like a suffocating fog. Jesse, Mia, and Tyler moved through the town like shadows themselves, haunted by the knowledge that their victory had only scratched the surface of the darkness that had taken root. The townspeople, still unaware of the full extent of the horrors lurking beneath their feet, went about their lives with uneasy glances over their shoulders and whispered rumors of strange lights and sounds in the night. Jessie took it upon herself to forge connections among the community, quietly gathering those who were willing to listen. People who had lost loved ones, experienced unexplainable phenomena, or simply felt the growing weight of dread pressing down on Blackwater. In dimly lit basements and around flickering campfires, they shared stories and pieced together fragments of history, revealing a tapestry of pain woven over centuries. Meanwhile, Mia immersed herself in the dusty tomes and brittle manuscripts of the town's neglected library, seeking knowledge of the cult's origins and the ancient forces that empowered them. Hours bled into nights as she deciphered cryptic languages and unsettling diagrams, uncovering a lineage of dark worship that traced back to settlers who had invoked malevolent spirits to protect their land, spirits that had since twisted into the Mouthless One and his shadow seed. Tyler, restless and driven by a need for action, descended into the labyrinth of tunnels beneath Blackwater. These forgotten passages, once used by the cult for clandestine rituals, were a maze of decay and danger. His flashlight beam cut through the choking darkness as he navigated collapsed corridors and ancient traps. Deep within the subterranean network, he stumbled upon a sealed chamber beneath the old town hall, untouched by time but heavy with a palpable malevolence. The walls were smeared with faded symbols and bones arranged in grotesque patterns, remnants of ceremonies designed to summon or contain forces beyond human understanding. At the center lay an altar, and atop it, a tome bound in blackened leather that seemed to absorb the faintest light. When Jesse and Mia joined him, the air grew colder, and faint whispers seemed to echo from the shadows themselves. The tome was a grim relic, inscribed with arcane text that hinted at a prophecy darker and more devastating than anything they had imagined. The Mouthless One, they learned, was not the ultimate evil, but a harbinger for a far greater darkness, bound by the cult's most secret and final ritual. This ritual was to be performed at the stroke of midnight during the impending blood moon, a celestial event that would bathe Blackwater in a crimson glow and unleash the full power of the darkness if left unchecked. The prophecy spoke of a hidden locus of despair and torment, the Blackwater Asylum, long abandoned and rumored to be cursed, its halls haunted by the tortured souls of those who had been trapped and broken within its walls. The asylum, lying on the outskirts of town, was more than just a relic of past cruelty. It was the epicenter of the cult's ultimate plan, the place where the ritual would summon the ancient darkness to reclaim the world. Faced with the horrifying truth, the three friends prepared themselves for a confrontation that would test their limits. They gathered ancient artifacts, protective charms, and weapons imbued with the faint light of hope. The nights grew colder, the air thicker with unseen eyes watching, waiting for the blood moon's rise. As the day of reckoning approached, Jesse, Mia, and Tyler knew that failure was not an option. The asylum awaited, a fortress of shadows, madness, and despair, and within its crumbling walls the fate of Blackwater, and perhaps all they held dear, would be decided in the dark. The night of the blood moon arrived with an eerie silence that swallowed Blackwater whole. The town bathed in an unnatural crimson glow as the moon hung low and ominous in the sky. Jesse, Mia, and Tyler stood at the gates of the long-abandoned Blackwater Asylum, their breaths visible in the cold air, hearts pounding in unison with the slow, dreadful rhythm of time ticking toward midnight. The asylum loomed like a sleeping beast, its broken windows staring like empty eye sockets, its rusted gates groaning as they pushed them open, stepping into a world forgotten and drenched in sorrow. Inside, the air was thick with decay, and a cold so deep it seeped into their bones. Shadows moved with a life of their own, whispering promises of despair and vengeance. As they ventured deeper, the walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy, the lingering presence of the cult's twisted rituals palpable in every corner. The trio followed the markings Mia had deciphered in the ancient tome, guiding them through twisting corridors and flooded basements, until they reached the heart of the asylum, a vast chamber beneath the shattered remains of the main building, where a pentagram of black stone was etched into the floor. There, cloaked figures of the cult gathered, chanting in a language older than time, their voices rising and falling like the howl of the wind outside. The air vibrated with raw, malevolent power as the blood moon reached its zenith, casting a scarlet light that ignited the ritual's terrible force. Jesse, Mia, and Tyler steeled themselves and launched into action, disrupting the cult's chant with a blast of light from the heart of Lumina. Chaos erupted as the dark energy fought to defend its summoning, tendrils of shadow twisting and lunging at them with murderous intent. The battle was a desperate dance of light and darkness, each second stretching into eternity as they fought to break the ritual's hold before it could birth the ancient evil foretold. The cultists, empowered by the blood moon's magic, proved formidable, but the trio's resolve was unyielding. With a final surge of strength and a piercing beam from the heart of Lumina, the pentagram shattered, the chamber trembled, and a scream of pure darkness tore through the air as the ritual was broken. As the first light of dawn pierced the asylum's broken windows, the cultists fled into the shadows, their power broken, but their threat not entirely vanquished. Jesse, Mia, and Tyler, battered but victorious, emerged from the depths to find Blackwater waking to a new day, free, at least for now, from the shadow that had gripped it for so long. They knew this battle was only one chapter in a longer war against the darkness that had seeped into the very roots of their town. Yet standing together, they found hope, a fragile, flickering light promising that as long as they stood united, the shadows would never fully consume Blackwater.